Here is question 1b. So here is a whole pile of graphs and data that we've been given. Let's just start having a look at what information we've got. So in our table, we've got our gold, silver, bronze, but particularly we've got the total number of medals for each country, and we've got the population, so how many millions of people there are in each of the country. Then we can have a look at our graph. So the one on the left, we've got on one axis, we've got the total number of medals. And then on the x-axis we've got our countries, and they've shaded them in gold, silver, bronze to give us an idea of the number of each type. Then our second graph, we've got the number of medals per million people, and we've got our three countries along the bottom axis. So they want us to make a statement about the relative success of these three countries using the graphs. Okay, so let's just start by, there were two types of information, the total number of medals and then the population size medals. So let's start by looking at the total number of medals. And if I start with the table, that shows us that New Zealand won 13 medals in the 2012 London Olympics. So we're going to write that, and that's the smallest number. So we write a sentence saying that New Zealand's got the lowest total number of medals with 13 from our three countries that we've got. Then we can look at Great Britain, and Great Britain has got 65 medals, which is the second highest or middle number. So we're going to write a sentence that Great Britain's got the second highest with 65. Notice how I'm putting the numbers in there, so that's our evidence that we're going to need for our merit. Then lastly there we've got the USA, who have 104 medals, and that is the largest total. So we're going to write that as a sentence. Then I'm going to look at each of the three graphs there. And when I look at those graphs, if I look at the proportion of the golds to silver to bronze, if I take New Zealand's one and was to stretch that bar up so it's a similar height, proportionally this gold, silver and bronze would be around about the same. So that's what I just want to do, is make a comment that the proportion are similar for all three countries. Okay, now I want to look at the other graph, and that is looking at the medals by population size. So we're going to start off by looking there at New Zealand, and I can see the value is nearly 3 when I read that off the graph. If I go to the total number of medals and the population size, I could actually work out the number exactly. So if I do 13 medals divided by a population of 4.37 million, that gives me around about 3.2 medals per million people in New Zealand. Now I'm going to write a sentence about that. New Zealand's got approximately 3 medals per million people and is the highest of the three countries. Then I want to look at the second one, Great Britain, and I'm going to read that off the graph. That's approximately 1 medal per million people. Again, if I go to the data, I can calculate it exactly. So 65 over 62.23, and that gives me 1.0. And I'm going to write a sentence. It's the second highest with approximately 1 medal per million people. Now lastly, I'm going to go to the US, and that's under half. And so if I take the numbers exactly, that's going to be 104 medals divided by 309 million. It's a value of 0.34. So I'm going to write a sentence. USA is the lowest with approximately 0.34 medals per million people. Okay, so now let's have a look at what the criteria for marking this are. So it needed to be a comment about the relative success. So they needed to be comparative statements. So you could either compare two countries in one graph. So I could compare New Zealand with America. You could compare just in one single graph looking at the total medals, or you could have compared one country with two graphs. So I could have looked at New Zealand on the total medals versus New Zealand on the medals per population. So when I talk about a comparative sentence, it could be of either type. So for marking, if you made one comparative comment, that gives you an achieve level skill, which is a U. If you give evidence with a comparison statement, then that gives you a merit level thinking. And if you compare all 3 countries with evidence, then that gives you your excellence, which is your T.